Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Intentional Guy. We are on air today with Cam Steele, and Cam is he has a podcast on faith and fishing. Cam, thank you for joining us today. It's such an honor to have you on our show today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, man.
Hey, well, we talked a little bit before the podcast, and I just wanted uh, to give him this time. We're intentional guys, what we do, and it's all about just growing our faith uh, uh, in everything we do, you know. And what better way to grow our faith and fishing? You know, I haven't got to go fishing in a long time, but I was telling Cam I live in Pensacola. I don't really have an excuse, and I have friends who are fishermen. I need them, if you're listening, to invite me out on your boat. Let's go fishing um, and enjoy that time. So, but Cam, I would like for you, if you would, share a little bit about your podcast, about this ministry you're doing as well. You're a chaplain uh, and all that stuff. If you could just kind of share some of that information with us today.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, my name is Cam Steele, and I'm the host of the Faith and Fishing podcast. The Faith and Fishing podcast is it's a simple premise. I interview fishermen and fisher women, anglers, to use a an all inclusive term. Anglers about what it is that they believe in and their faith stories and their fishing memories and um, uh, all walks of life, all backgrounds, all religions and denominations and all kinds of people. I've gotten to meet some really amazing people through the podcast, and um, I so my wife is a potter, and she was spending a lot of time out in the studio at night, and I kind of got tired of going to the same pond over and over and over again. That it was just a little park pond. It barely had any fish in it, and I was like, I want to do something that I don't have to leave the house. And I was listening to another podcast, and one guy mentioned his faith briefly, and then another guy mentioned his faith briefly, and I thought that would be a really cool idea to give somebody a platform to share their faith where their sponsors aren't
Mhm.
and their sponsors aren't holding them back, or a network's not holding them back, and they can just kind of speak freely. And then I just kind of kept that in the back of my mind that would be cool. I want to look and see if I can find that. And another fishing influencer or content creator said he was on another podcast and said, if there's content out there that you want to see or hear or experience and you can't find it, it's on you to make it.
Mhm.
And so I made it, and I
I
kind of
like that.
jumped all in and started this podcast and kind of built it into a community. Have a community on Facebook where just fishermen get together and pray for each other and share our fishing stories and kind of keep up with each other. Um, and out of that, I got invited on another podcast, and this crazy guy had this idea of, well, why don't you volunteer as a chaplain for one of our local trails? So we are fishing out of kayaks. So we're bass fishing out of these little plastic boats, and we are a group called Central Carolina Kayak Fishing, and it's located in the Triangle area here in North Carolina. It's Raleigh, Durham, Falls Lake, Sharon Harris Lake, Jordan Lake. Those are the kind of main lakes here, um, and so I reached out to the director, and he was like, I never thought about that. We've got like at least three pastors in the group. It would be great. So I started this ministry and just kind of eased my way into it as just a way to it's a way to love on people, man.
Yeah.
And that's what it's been so far. Is it's made me be intentional. Being here on the Intentional Guy podcast,
Yes.
whenever I'm out on the water and I'm just fishing by myself and I see another kayaker or a kayak fisherman, normally I would grumble to myself, "Why is he coming in on my lake and he's catching all the fish? Why?" Kind of thing. But now I'm like, I need to go over and introduce myself. I need to go over and see if there's anything I can do to love on this person. So it's you were talking about, how we grow our faith, and
Yeah.
I think a big part of how we grow our faith is community
Mhm.
and relationships, and being intentional about doing that has been fantastic. I served as a youth pastor for a couple of different churches, but before I moved to this area, and this has been, between the podcast and this role as chaplain, it's been a way to kind of get back into ministry to a certain extent.
Right.
If we've got a couple, at least a couple teenagers in our trail that, I like, want to make sure that I, I, they know that if they need somebody to talk to, I'm there. And then that goes for the adults too, but I'll always have youth ministry close to my heart. So I kind of zero in on that pretty quick.
I resonate with that. I was a youth minister for, oh, I don't know, 20 years about, and, uh, that was that's what I wanted to be. I wasn't using it as a stepping stone to become a pastor or something somewhere else. I really had a heart, and I still do have a heart for for the youth. And I think a lot of that came back from like when I was a teenager. We had youth pastors in and out and stuff, and um, that was such a crucial time. That's such a crucial time for someone. So I resonate with that. You know, so I understand that.
Absolutely. Anytime I talk to somebody who is into youth ministry in any capacity, I always love to ask, what is your favorite age group to work with?
My favorite age group to work with, it's funny because it's changed. It used to be high school was my favorite. I didn't like junior high, I did not like. But now I have enjoyed junior high more than I did the high schoolers, you know. And I don't know if it's because I've matured or they've, what it is, but junior hires used to gross me out, because it was like junior hires, especially the boys, it's like a booger or, passing gas was the best timeline they could have. And but what I think why I like it, it's such an awkward stage of development. And I found out that that was also one of the most crucial stages of development, you know, and that's when they're really forging all this new beginnings inside their lives. So I think that's why I really like that. How about you?
It has always been middle school for me. That
Has it?
that 11 to 13-year-old
Mhm.
age group has always been my favorite to work with. Um, it's a whole lot easier to like take a group of middle schoolers that don't know each other and turn them into like a group or a family, because those social boundaries are still they're there, but
Yes.
they're still pliable.
Right.
Like you said, they are just as awkward as I am, so I
Yeah.
fit in with them a lot a lot better sometimes. They're not too cool for me. Um,
Yeah. And they're a little easier to entertain. And I realized high school students were just like they were harder because they wanted to be entertained more, or this isn't cool, this isn't that. And the junior high kids went with the flow. They made it fun. If it wasn't fun, well, then they found a way to make it fun. And it was like, uh, it's a really cool age to be honest with you, that needs that attention, I think.
Absolutely, man.
So you do this. How long have you been doing? Okay, so you chaplain now. How long have you been doing the chaplain part?
So I this is my first season working or helping out as chaplain with the trail. So our season starts officially. It starts in March, and then it goes through October. We typically have one, maybe two events a month, on different lakes. So I have been doing this since March.
Okay, see, I didn't even know there was a fishing season.
So here in the South, it's great because I can fish all year
Right.
round. But in terms of doing a tournament, if you're directing a tournament, you want to make sure that that you keep your members safe as possible, and anytime there's cold water involved, the safety level drops.
Oh,
So
yeah.
somebody who's not a confident paddler or peddler or motorer, depending on how they are moving their kayak, or if they're not as stable as others, or they don't know how to dress properly for the
Mhm.
weather, it can end up being a dangerous situation for them. And so typically we look for the 120 rule, which is if the water temperature and the air temperature added together equal 120, it's the risk of hypothermia goes way down, and then if it's below that, it goes way up. Now we have had some March tournaments where we're knocking ice off of our guides and stuff, um, but uh, but yeah, the safe time typically is that March to October range, and then up in the northern states, after October sometimes they end up ice fishing. So I don't know much about that other than it looks crazy, and I want to do it one day. But
Oh, I don't miss the cold. I'm from Chicago. I moved to Pensacola, Florida, and I don't miss or we used to go salmon fishing out there and all that when I was a kid and everything. So I always enjoyed it, but it was man, it was so cold
absolutely.
during that time period. Um, so how what do you think the most rewarding part is on as being the chaplain that you found this year doing that has been for you?
um so I haven't been able to do a lot of tournaments in person with the guys this year, just because of the
Right.
way the schedule has fallen. But every time I'm around them, and I'm talking to them, it eventually hits them, and they'll be like, "Oh,
Right.
you're the prayer guy, right? You're the guy who does all the prayers." So I do like uh, I try to jump on the captain's meetings and do a prayer for the guys the night before, and uh, depending on the day, I've tried to do a prayer call the morning of, but that has not been going as well, just because of the fact that you got to get up so early, and everybody's either traveling or setting up while I'm doing it. So we do it more at the night before. But the but yeah, uh, just the the conversations that I've had I've been able to have on the water or off the water, just kind of that camaraderie, the
Right.
brotherhood. That's been the most rewarding part, is just having that sense of, I belong here,
Yeah.
and this is where I'm supposed to be. That kind of sense of fulfilling a calling that
Yeah.
I never even would have thought that I had, but all of a sudden, boom, there it is, and it's like, yeah, this is a good fit. The puzzle piece fell in place here.
Isn't it great when God can take your passion for certain things and bring it into your faith, you know?
Absolutely, it's almost like he knows what he's doing, right?
Yeah, you know? Who thought? Who would have thought, right? And I know so for like me, and I imagine this is how it is with you. I'm just guessing, but you can tell me. Um, you don't become a youth pastor unless you like people, okay? Because especially junior high kids, they don't have any personal space, whatever. And I love one of the things I realized with me that is that I love relationships. I love building relationships, and I like building relationships with people to help kind of gear it toward faith and grow it a little bit, and I'm more interested in their story. Now, how do you relate that? Because I know fishing is kind of a quiet sport. People don't like to talk a whole lot. I mean, part of fishing is you get out in nature and you're kind of I mean, people kind of like the fish to isolate from that. So how do you build those relationships in that situation?
Well, so fishermen and anglers, the community, especially the kayak fishing community, is a very tight knit community, and we are. It's very similar to like a church in that you get together with somebody who has that same passion,
Hmm.
and instantly you've got something that you've got in common. So now, starting a conversation, you don't have to do all the small talk and the, well,
Hmm.
how's the weather today kind of thing. You've got something that you both connect on right
Right.
away, and that's fishing. So we can come off the water, and I can grab a hold of their kayak and help them load it up, and then and start talking. How was your day on the water? Um, what what went right for you? What went wrong for you? The kayak fishing community is so tight knit that, I mean, you go and ask a kayak angler what they're catching them on, and a lot of times they'll throw you a bag of the baits that they're using. I
Really.
mean, the we talk all the time about how the boating world is so cutthroat, and they got to keep their secrets. And where what'd you catch them on a hook? Where'd you catch it? In the water, kind of thing. But I mean, kayak fishermen are out there sharing their GPS coordinates and their baits and all that stuff. So but it's easy to start that conversation and get that rolling. And once you've kind of got that started, um, I mean, as chaplain, it's really easy for me to just hand them a card and say, "Hey, you ever need anything? Give me a call. You need somebody to listen to you? Give me a call. You up one night and you just need somebody? Give me a call." Um, I've had people call me and say, "Hey, I need to borrow this for the tournament," and it's like, "Well, I'm not fishing it, so you can borrow this," or um, I I I've got an extra one, you can borrow this. And uh, and then whenever you do get a chance to be on the water beside somebody, that's where the, like, getting to know somebody happens.
Right.
I got to fish beside one of the members of our club most of the day. One of the tournaments that we fished, it was one of those tournaments where we got to choose between five of the smaller lakes that none of them were big enough to hold the tournament on its own. So we got to choose where we fished, and we were the only two on the lake, and we ended up right beside each other most of the day. It was funny. He came up and asked, as I was unloading. He said, "You going where I think you're going?" I was like, "Yep." He said, "Me too." um, so you know, we got to sit there, and I got to listen to him um, talk about his family and about his story and uh, his life story, basically, and his love of fishing. And he talked about how he has learned the hard way that you don't make it all about the money, you make it about the passion of fishing. And he told this amazing story of how he was on the water with a friend, and he was having a decent day on the water. He just wasn't high enough on the leaderboard that he wanted to be, and he was grumpy and he was not having a good day. And he could hear these kids in the distance playing this really loud music, and he was just grumpy. And his buddy came around the corner, around the bend, standing up in his kayak, flipping his lure to the bank and dancing the whole time. And he looked, and his buddy wasn't anywhere near the top of the standing. And he was like, "I'm doing something wrong." And he sat there, and I'm sitting here trying to be the chaplain, and he's teaching me all the lessons. And
Yep.
um, just those kinds of relationships, and just being able to tell somebody, "Hey, man, um, you ever need somebody to pray with you or just listen to you, I love you, man, and I'm here for you. Um, that's that's what it's all about, man.
And I think people forget that. A lot of times we look at, like, for me, I always thought I had to be in full-time ministry, and that's how you minister to people, and being in the church, you had to be a pastor or something like that. And I realized that my ministry was my life, and I've learned in the last couple of years how important relationships are. First off, the relationships I have in my life, but the relationships also that I build out there, that I have, um, with people. Because one of the things I enjoy is, a lot of times when we think we're pouring into somebody, we find out God really used that to pour into me, and that's
Absolutely.
the amazing part. And then you find out we've been ministering to each other. And what I like is sometimes it's even a person who doesn't even know Christ that can speak to my heart. And then I just feel God saying, "You don't have to sit here and be holy and, ritualistic and all this stuff. I need you to be is be Mike today. Just be Mike. Be who I've created you to be, and build this relationship with this person." And then you see down the road how that will foster, because eventually that person may come into hard times, may come into something, and they need someone to pray with you. And that for me was, I was working at a prison. I'm like, "God, why do you have me working at a prison?" I was a teacher. I didn't like it, nothing about it. But God had me there for a reason, right? And I was going through it was a transitional period in my life. And I honestly thought God would never use me again, is where I was at in my life. But I was dealing I just I got back to church, and I started being who God had created me to be, and it changed everything. And how I taught was different now. How I taught to these guys was, and I remember one day when 4 of them came up to me, which kinda scared me, because you don't like when 4 inmates come up to you at a prison, and say, "We wanna talk to you." And I was like, "Okay, let's go back in my room." And next thing I know, it's like, "Can you pray with us over our families? We've got this stuff going on," and everything. And the only reason why they came to me was because I talked to them like they were people, and they saw me come to some of the chaplain services, you know? So it's it's amazing that God doesn't require a lot out of us other than just to be ourselves, and God will bring the people your way. Have you found that with this, as in this ministry, uh, with some of the relationships you built there?
Yeah, I have. I mean, one of the guys that texts me the most and contacts me the most, he was not part of Central Carolina kayak fishing at the start of the season. Um, I I ran into him on a boat ramp at one of the lakes that we frequent, and I started talking to him, gave him my card, and now he's part of the group. So, and he's he contacts me on a regular basis. So, yeah, I've absolutely seen that. Um, it's definitely um, I'm I don't necessarily have a problem being outgoing, but it's not my default. So it's definitely
Right?
come out of my shell a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah.
How's it helped you with your faith?
Um, I think it's kind of helping to reignite that fire that kind of started dwindling down for mainly just complacency reasons,
Mhm.
and you know, not being in a an active ministry role. You know, I kind of found myself, just lacking the intentionality.
Mhm.
You know, the choose this day who you will
Right.
serve kind of thing, and being a part of these ministries between my podcast and the being a chaplain, that it's helped helped rekindle my passion for not only God but for people. And
Mhm.
I think the passion for the people was the part that is reignited the most, and um, that desire to want to be there um, to to do what I can to help the hearts of people.
Yep.
And you know, I hold to the fact that, you know, I'm careful not to say, you know, that whenever a student of mine got saved, you know, I did not save that kid. Yeah,
Right.
Jesus saved that kid, and I was there to be a part of it. Um,
Right.
and so yeah, it's just being able to be part of that again, has been pretty phenomenal. I will share one of there's a tournament series up in Ohio, in Central Ohio, called the Fishers of Men Kayak Trail, and they asked the podcast to sponsor them by sending a couple shirts for door prizes, and and it it I had their director on the podcast, and last week he texted me and said, you know, I baptized someone. I baptized a guy last weekend, and he said that, you know, the podcast where we talked was what kind of introduced him to Christ, and that was, you know, that was really powerful, and just that kind of uh, you know, that whenever you've been out of ministry for a while, and then it kind of you not necessarily forget, but you kind of is that feeling of welcoming someone into the kingdom,
Yeah.
um, just
And
kind
it's
of.
great having a purpose,
Oh,
sometimes
absolutely.
I think sometimes we get complacent, like you said, and I know for me, I got to where I was just barely existing. I was going with the flow of life instead of being intentional in life, and that's where this all came from, and I've been amazed at something as simple as a podcast, where I'm doing something I like to do, talk. I'm talking and I'm meeting great people. I'm enjoying this. Uh, but then to have the letters and the emails come in that I've experienced um, has been powerful to me because it was God showing me, look, just a little bit of obedience and look what I can do. And to see
Absolutely.
God working in your life again in that way, there's something powerful about that, and I enjoy that. It's addictive to watch what God can do
Yeah,
in your life
absolutely. It
and to be a
absolutely
part of
is.
something bigger than you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely, I 100% agree with that. Just uh, being a part of, you know, of God's kingdom, and being, you know, an active part of it, and not just a bystander, but being an active part of it.
And I like that you went out and you found your niche. You found, your passion. You didn't sit back and wait for God to open doors. You went out there and looked for ways to do that. And that's what I think uh, we embody on this podcast is for people to be we're not cookie cutter. Life is not cookie cutter. Well,
Absolutely.
go find your passion, go the things that because I really feel like God's given us a passion for the things we have. So use that passion. It makes you unique in who you are, and it opens up something that is different that can be used for the kingdom of God. And you're just intentional in doing it, and you're doing something you love to do too. On top of that,
Absolutely.
it makes you almost feel like you're cheating, don't it?
Yes, it does. You tell me that I get to sit down and talk about Jesus and fishing,
Yeah.
and man, I'm
Now,
that's
Now I do have a question for you, okay? Because so this year I've been intentional in my life, and I've lost. I'm almost to 100 pounds lost, and so I've been really intentional in that. And I've been looking for things. I was going to go bike riding, because I got to get some exercise in. But I was like, I was in a bad car wreck, and I don't want to be near the road. So now it's funny you're on the show because I live in the Pensacola area, and I've been seeing people who have been doing been kayaking, and they love it, And then you also get here in Florida, someone was kayaking the other day, and I saw it on their thing, and a dolphin came up to them. I'm like, how cool is that? And I'm like, they're out
Absolutely.
there just on this kayak doing. Is it something you enjoy?
Oh man, I love kayaking. I mean, kayak fishing is as good as it gets. But just kayaking itself, it gets you so close to nature. Um, you know, you're so much quieter than being in a boat with a motor.
Mhm,
You're lower to the water. You kind of end up being a part of the environment.
mhm.
And um, some of the places that I get to fish, it's I can just sit there and just listen, just watch.
Right.
I, I take a pair of binoculars and just watch the birds. One of the lakes that I frequent has a family of bald eagles that nest every year, and they're out there all the time. And um, there's one that's kind of it's a cypress swamp, and it's got these oh, what are they called? Something judicial, but it's a warbler. It's this like neon yellow bird that nest in these PVC pipe things right above the water,
Oh, wow.
and they're everywhere. And just sitting and listening. And I will say, you end up sneaking up on a lot of nature, and you end up scaring each other. Um, you you don't know a jump scare until you sneak up on a beaver or a blue heron.
Oh,
'Cause
really?
whenever a beaver slaps the water with its tail, it sounds like somebody dropped like a big slab of concrete in the water, and it will make you jump so high. And the great blue herons, um, they blend into everything, and they're so stealthy. And whenever you end up sneaking up on one, a lot of times they'll fly off, and they scream like a pterodactyl, and
Oh my god.
it's
See,
it
I'm always afraid I'll sneak up on a snake or something. That's what would scare me to death, and then I'll be
um
running on the water.
Yeah, most of the stuff in the water is trying to get away from you. So
That's
it's
good. Well, I'm really thinking about kayaking because there's a family in our church that does it, and I'm really like me and my wife are looking at some kind of thing that we could do together. And so that actually, it's funny because just in the last week we've been kind of looking at that and seeing if that's an option because we've never been outdoors people. We've never been, but we've changed together. We've lost 185 pounds this year.
That's awesome.
And we're like, now we wanna be more active, and we hate the gym. So what can we find that we like, that we can get some exercise, but then see nature, and I love the water, I just love the water.
Absolutely.
So,
And being down in Florida, on the coast, you get to paddle around manatees and stuff, and dolphins, and all kinds of fun stuff. And then on the freshwater, you get to hang out with the alligators.
yeah, that's alright. That's alright. I've been too close to them sometimes, so but I really I think that's something that would just be enjoyable to do. And I never
Absolutely.
thought about that until about a week ago, and I started seeing those. I was like, "Wow, that looks like fun," you know?
And there are kayaks out there that are just extremely comfortable, very stable.
Really.
And it, uh,
Are they expensive? How expensive is a kayak?
they are as expensive
Do you
as you
want them to
think
be?
they can be. And obviously, the more expensive you get, the more comfortable they are.
Right.
But in terms of like a recreational kayak, that um, a one that paddles well, that's a sit on top that you don't have to sit inside of and has a comfortable
Right.
seat. Um, I would say somewhere for a stable, comfortable one, you're probably looking at 600 plus,
Really?
and then you can go much cheaper than that, but you're probably getting into the 10 foot and very tippy, sitting on the plastic range whenever you get down
Oh,
into
yes.
the like
Yes.
300 $400 range, but
Well, and
yeah.
that's about what I was gonna pay for a bike when I was looking at doing that. I was like, you know, eh but if you can find something that you're passionate about, that you love doing, it makes it so much easier, nicer, and I think being out there in nature would be kinda enjoyable with it, so
Absolutely, and the Facebook Marketplace, market for kayaks is a pretty decent place to look too if you're looking for something that's not necessarily brand new and a little bit cheaper for you.
that might be a route to go. That might be a route to go. Well, Cam, listen, I appreciate you being on our show today. Um, tell me, where can people go to find your podcast? We'll make sure we put it in the link.
Absolutely. So the podcast is on pretty much all your major platforms. If you are trying to find it on your platform and you can't find it, let me know and I'll make sure it gets up there.
Okay.
But yeah, we have a link that has kind of all inclusive. It's everything up there, and I'm just gonna spell it for you so that it's easy. But it's linktr.ee/ faith and fishing. That's faith the letter N, fish the letter N, and
Okay.
that's got all of the sponsor links. I've got some awesome sponsors and that take care of me, and that's got where you can listen. It's got like new episodes of podcasts that I've been on outside of my own podcast. It's got the YouTube channel where I've started putting up some of my podcast episodes. We've got the video conversation like Mike and I have now. Um, that's up there, and let's see what else is up there. The website for the podcast and the merch store.
Okay.
So we have like logo T-shirts and um, T-shirts with a couple of quotes from guests and hoodies and stickers. And what I'm going to do is whenever this episode airs, Mike will let me know, and there will be a um, there will be a promo code. It'll be IGPOD. And that way, your listeners, as my way of saying thank you for having me on the show, your listeners can get 20% off, and that will last a month after the episode
Awesome.
airs.
Awesome. So we'll make sure that we put all that in the description for you guys, and especially to my listeners that enjoy the outdoor, enjoy fishing. I'm really I love podcasts. You know, most podcasts they do them once a week, and I've got 7 days a week. And believe it or not, I probably about 6 days a week I listen to podcasts, and I listen to a couple. I love them because it's great place to get information while I'm working. I can listen to a podcast, all that. So I'm going to encourage my guys that like fishing, all that relate to a lot of what you just talked about, to go look at it. We'll put it in the description so they can go. This be a place that maybe you find commonality with and could enjoy, and will help you also grow in your faith. Is what better, right? So,
Absolutely.
well, Cam, thank you so much for being on our show today. And to all my listeners, until next time, just keep being intentional. We'll talk to you later.